The Shenzhen Special Economic Zone celebrates its 40th anniversary, with President Xi Jinping calling its achievement a miracle. And European governments ratchet up restrictions to contain the spread of the coronavirus.
Hello and a very good evening. This year marks the 40th anniversary of the establishment of the Shenzhen Special Economic Zone. As the city kicked off the celebratory event this morning, in his speech, President Xi Jinping reaffirmed Shenzhen's strategic importance in the country's economic reform.
For Hong Kong, Xi also made a special remark on ways to make its young people more patriotic. Jackie Lin begins our coverage.
President Xi Jinping, alongside a host of top Beijing officials and principal officials from Hong Kong, attended Shenzhen's celebratory ceremony. Xi, as expected, heaped praise on the southern port's 40-year ascent to become an economic powerhouse. Touting it as a miracle in world history, he says it's a feat that takes other cities more than a century to achieve. He also summarized the 10 lessons from Shenzhen's development, including continuing to open up the economy and adherence to the system of socialism with Chinese characteristics. He also envisioned grand plans to build Shenzhen into a technological and financial hub with global influence. They include more support and freedom given to its capital markets and the launch of a digital yuan. To make the broader region more competitive, he says, Shenzhen and other cities in the Greater Bay Area should attract more investment from Hong Kong, Macau, and overseas Chinese. These cities should also make a special effort to promote themselves to young people from Hong Kong and Macau. She says these exchanges in studies and work could facilitate better understanding and integration across the border. Ultimately, she hopes it will strengthen Hong Kong's teens' sense of belonging to the nation. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Well, President Xi's speech also focused on plans to further integrate Hong Kong with the Greater Bay Area Development Project.
But as Dong Yao reports, some think Hong Kong's importance as an engine for development in the Greater Bay Area may be diminishing.
In his 50-minute speech, President Xi Jinping highlighted Shenzhen's leading role in economic reform and regional development. He stressed that Shenzhen is a core engine in developing the Greater Bay Area, an economic initiative to integrate Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau. But Hong Kong, another key engine listed in the Greater Bay Area plan, received much less coverage in Xi's speech. Does that mean Hong Kong is becoming less crucial than its neighbor in the central government's view?
Chief Executive of Hong Kong giving up Hong Kong to be a major city in order to take some more influentials or contribution to the Greater Bay Area.
Wong Kam-fai, local member to the CPPCC National Committee, said last year's protest movement might have affected Hong Kong's standing.
Created a lot of hurdles.
President Xi also called for deeper integration among young talents in the three regions. This includes luring more young talent from Hong Kong to the high-tech sector on the mainland.
The unemployment rate actually has grown a little, and therefore opening up Shenzhen will actually create opportunities for the youth by giving jobs or career paths for the youth.
Wu Chi-wai said there is severe distrust among local young people towards the mainland, a notion which Wong Kam-fai rejected.
There's a misconception saying that youths are not willing to go over. From my record, I mean, from the school, from the college, from the university, we understand that more and more people are actually willing to explore the mainland market. There are good facilities around there. For example, Qinghai, the Lok Ma Chau Loop.
Shenzhen's party chief Wang Weizhong said close collaboration among the three regions has been developed in technology innovation. He also vowed to advance the city's business environment, calling it the top priority in Shenzhen's future reform. Dong Yaonie, TVB News.
East China's Qingdao City in Shandong Province reported 6 more coronavirus cases. 5 of the cases were patients of a chest hospital, where most of the city's recent cluster of local infections have been found. Qingdao has conducted a massive COVID-19 testing scheme on more than 9 million residents, and so far, no positive cases have been found. The Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention says the outbreak in the city is unlikely to be large.
Governments across Europe are ratcheting up restrictions in an effort to contain the spread of the coronavirus.
This comes as the continent recorded its highest weekly number of new infections since the start of the pandemic. Peter Cavillas tells us more.
Britain's confirmed COVID-19 cases has more than tripled in the last 3 weeks. Infection rates are rising across all age groups and regions. That's forced the government to unveil a 3-tiered system for deciding what restrictions to impose. High-risk areas may have to close pubs, gyms, and casinos. Britain's opposition is questioning Prime Minister Boris Johnson's plan.
The government's plan simply isn't working. Another course is needed. That's why I'm calling for a 2 to 3 week circuit break in England, in line with SAGE's recommendation. A temporary set of clear and effective restrictions designed to get the R rate down and reverse the trend of infections and hospital admissions. There are now more people in hospital with COVID than on the 23rd of March when we went into national lockdown.
Britain has suffered the deadliest outbreak in Europe with a death toll of more than 43,000. In France, restaurant and bar owners threw a cocktail party outside one of Paris's main train stations. The group wants to highlight their industry's financial struggle as a result of the pandemic. Last week, the government enforced stricter measures in response to the growing number of cases in the capital. Bars were forced to close and restaurants ordered to enforce measures, including distance between tables. The Netherlands also ordered the closing of all bars and restaurants as part of a partial lockdown. Those measures will last at least 4 weeks to counter a surge in cases. And to discourage partying at home, the government banned the sale of alcohol after 8 p.m. Bars and restaurants in Italy have been told to close at midnight. The government has also banned pickup sports games among friends and parties in enclosed spaces. Private gatherings at homes with more than 6 people who don't live together are also discouraged. Last week, masks became mandatory outdoors. Italy's death toll from COVID-19 is more than 36,000, the second highest in Europe after Britain. Peter Cavillas, TVB News.
Independent monitors have paused enrollment in a study testing the COVID-19 antiviral drug remdesivir. They've also suspended enrollment in a study into an experimental antibody therapy being developed by Eli Lilly. The treatment is similar to the one that President Donald Trump recently received. Lilly confirmed Tuesday that the study has been paused out of an abundance of caution and said safety is its top concern. The company would not say more about what led to this step. The U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, which sponsors the study, would not immediately comment.
President Donald Trump's nominee to the U.S. Supreme Court gave no commitments to senators on how she might rule on healthcare issues and election-related cases.
Try as they might, Democrats on Capitol Hill were unable to force Amy Coney Barrett to commit to any concrete answer.
U.S. Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett faced another day of grilling from senators over her appointment to America's top court. And one of her inquisitors was none other than Democratic vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris, who asked Barrett how she might rule on a decision on the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare.
Prior to your nomination, were you aware of President Trump's statements committing to nominate judges who will strike down the Affordable Care Act?
I don't recall seeing or hearing those statements, but I don't really know what context they were in. I think from my perspective, the most important thing is to say that I have never made a commitment. I've never been asked to make a commitment, and I hope that the committee would trust in my integrity not to even entertain such an idea, and that I wouldn't violate my oath if I were confirmed.
Barrett also gave no commitments on how she might rule on other contentious issues too, and declined to say if she believed landmark rulings legalizing abortion and gay marriage were properly decided.
I can't apply the law to a hypothetical set of facts. I can only decide cases as they come to me, litigated by parties on a full record after fully engaging precedent, talking to colleagues, writing an opinion.
Worryingly for Democrats on Capitol Hill, Barrett declined to say whether she would recuse herself from any election-related cases involving U.S. President Donald Trump. Pressed by panel Democrats, she skipped over questions about ensuring the date of the election or preventing voter intimidation. The Senate, led by Trump's Republican allies, wants to press ahead with the vote on Barrett's nomination before the November 3rd election. If confirmed, Barrett would take her seat right before the latest challenge to the Obamacare Affordable Care Act, which the Supreme Court is to hear a week after the election.
And still ahead on tonight's news. Thai anti-government protesters clash with royalist supporters in Bangkok. An 81-year-old man sentenced to jail for attacking former lawmaker Leung Kwok-hong. And a warm welcome back to TVB News. Thousands of Thai anti-government protesters clashed with royalist supporters in Bangkok as protesters call for the country's Prime Minister to step down and challenge the monarchy.
The rally is the latest in 3 months of demonstrations, which have put the greatest pressure in years on the establishment. Leslie Tang has more.
In the latest act of defiance, thousands of anti-government protesters swarmed the area near Bangkok's iconic Democracy Monument. There were chaotic scenes as police tried to keep anti-government protesters and yellow-clad royalist supporters apart, with the two sides scuffling. The protests, which have broken out over the past 3 months, present the biggest challenge in years to the political establishment, which is dominated by the army and the palace. Demonstrators are demanding a new constitution and the removal of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, who is a former junta leader. They have also called for curbs on the powers of the monarchy, which is significant, as criticizing the royal family is considered taboo. The royal institution is protected by a lèse-majesty law that can result in up to 15 years in prison for defaming the monarchy. A government spokesman said 15,000 police officers had been deployed to keep order for the day. When the situation calmed, activists tore past barriers to climb onto the monument. Their goal is to march to Government House and surround it for a night. While demonstrators were preparing the rallying site on Tuesday, police scuffled with blue paint-throwing protesters and made multiple arrests. Protesters also made a rare direct challenge to the king, chanting at his passing convoy. Leslie Tang, TVB News.
Back locally, today marked the first day of the extended LegCo term, which meant resuming a fresh round of council meetings. With the chief executive away and the policy address postponed until November, lawmakers scrutinised 4 less controversial bills that still needed vetting from last year. But as usual, the meetings proceeded with multiple quorum calls by the Pan Democrats and squabbles between the two political camps. Looking forward, the Pan Democrats hope LegCo elections will be reinstated as soon as possible to ensure the legislature represents the public effectively. The pro-Beijing camp, on the other hand, says the most pressing matter is shoring up the pandemic-hit economy.
Former Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying noted there's no room for discussions on the subject of Hong Kong independence at schools. In an exclusive interview with TVB News, Leung talked about the unprecedented deregistration of a primary school teacher who's accused of promoting Hong Kong independence in school.
If you go to a religious school, for example, you do not expect to be able to use your freedom of expression to attack that particular religion. Similarly, in Hong Kong, which is part of China. And in our basic law, it says clearly that Hong Kong is an inalienable part of the People's Republic of China. You do not expect teachers to be able to teach the independence of Hong Kong, separating Hong Kong from China in any way, including in a suggestive way that somehow this is subject to feasibility.
Leung also elaborated on why he chose to disclose the identity of the teacher and the school involved through his social media page.
We can't just use the freedom of expression, the freedom to learn and academic freedom as defenses. Now let's go back to the basics. The purpose of education is to bring up our new generation for their parents. Parents have the right to know. The objects of education are not to provide job opportunities for teachers only. The right to know on the part of parents override any privacy issue.
Citing multiple media reports as the sources of information, Leung made public yesterday the names, ages and details of the criminal cases in which 18 other school teachers were charged. An education sector lawmaker doubts if that violated privacy laws.
Recently, we find out that there are a lot of doxing activities on the web targeting teachers. So we have already started some study with the lawyers to see whether we can go forward with the injunction.
An 81-year-old man who admitted to attacking a League of Social Democrats member has been slapped with a prison term of 3 months and 6 days. On April 16th, the defendant, Wong Sum Kao, stabbed ousted lawmaker Leung Kwok-hung while he gave an interview outside Beijing's liaison office. Wong later pled guilty to 1 count of assault, occasioning actual bodily harm. Noting the defendant was unsuitable for a community service order, the magistrate said he must be punished with imprisonment.
The Wan Chai post office and a nearby building received dozens of envelopes containing a suspicious powder. Police deployed a bomb disposal unit to the scene after the mail depot reported 41 letters had a suspicious white substance. Officers also found 50 such letters in the mailboxes of the Kam Shing building. This is the second time in 2 weeks that such items have been found in Wan Chai district. Previously, residents of 3 different housing blocks received 50 envelopes containing what's said to be powdered sugar. No arrests have been made in any of the cases. That's the news for tonight. Thanks for watching.
Bye for now.